Thank you for that introduction. So I run a training company, Let's Learn Digital. We specialize in training in emerging technologies like blockchain, AI, virtual reality, which is really fascinating. And I think this panel really is about looking at the future and those trends that can get us ahead. And I think this is really important because what's happening in digital marketing is the speed of technology, the speed of change is happening at an increasing rate. So what I've learnt in my own career in marketing is we need to keep one eye on the future. We need to be aware of what's going on around us. So part of our responsibilities, I guess, as digital marketers is really to understand those significant trends that will make a difference to our business and potentially give us an edge over our competitors. So I want to kind of shape this discussion around kind of a few themes that I'm going to mention now. Firstly, one of the most significant trends that I think is very important and still important is video, the increasing importance of video. So by 2019, global consumer internet video traffic will account for 80% of all consumer internet traffic. So that's a huge amount. And the Drum has predicted that by the end of next year, video will represent something like 30 or 40% of all online advertising. So video gives you a fantastic opportunity to get ahead of your competitors. And of course, video has been driven by mobile. So 92% of mobile video consumers share videos with others. So it's not just important in terms of engagement, but also promoting sharing. So we're going to look at video. Some examples of video: Periscope, Facebook Live stories, Instagram stories. Secondly, the growth of bots and automation. Last year, Alexa revealed that they had sold 50 million devices. Incredible, the growth of machine learning and bots. So this is a great tool that we can use for automation, for getting ahead again of our competitors. Examples are Facebook Messenger, voice assistants, and Reilly, which is a marketing AI tool. Thirdly, we should not forget stories. The importance of engaging stories, we're going to be talking about that in the panel, is really, really vital, particularly millennials, the younger audience. We have to be using these tools to grab their attention. One of the great ways in which we can do that is stories. And then the fourth theme that I want to kind of, if we have time, is how do we equip ourselves for the future? We know that everything's going really, really fast. We know that the pace of changes is such that everything is moving at such a pace. So what is it as marketeers that we need to do to keep us ahead and equip us for the future? So this is a quote that I lifted from a book I'm reading right now. Forget programming. The best skill to teach our children will be reinvention. Change will be the only constant. So that's something to think about. Hopefully, by the end of this session, you'll be inspired about the future. So I'm going to welcome onto the stage here Helen Farr-Leander, who is from a luxury e-commerce background. And then I'm going to welcome also to join us Edward Upton. Can you give us a small little round of applause?
Where do you want?
Yeah, that's okay. There you go.
Go in the middle, yeah, sure.
So, and hopefully if we've got time, I'm going to take some questions from the audience as well. Starting with Helen, do you want to do a quick introduction about yourself and your career and what your specialism is within marketing?
Okay, so I spent 10 years at Aspinall of London, luxury leather goods, and was there from the beginning, so growing from 0 to 10 million pounds. And then I went to leading a marketing agency, More2, for a couple of years, learned about single customer view, how to engage with customers, looking at segmentation of data. And then after a career break, I've now started a company called Watson & Wolf, which is a luxury vegan men's accessories brand. and we are lots of these trends we're talking about today are very important to our content plan over the next 12 to 24 months. So hopefully a lot of the research that we've been doing as a business will be helpful for some of you guys today.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
Edward, do you want to do a quick
Yeah,
overview?
sure. So I've my background is really more on the data analysis side. I started my company Little Data 4 years ago, and we really help e-commerce companies understand their customer journey from the marketing campaigns they're doing, generally across lots of channels, through to the actual end conversion. So we work with about 1,000 different businesses and across the US and Europe, so hopefully I can talk about some of those trends.
Okay, brilliant. So before I go into those 4 kind of themes, I wanted to ask you a kind of general question about your careers, and just, can you, I guess a sweeping question is, can you share anything about looking back on your career that gave you a kind of extra edge against your competition when you were mapping out your digital strategy that would be
For the digital strategy now?
No, just looking
Broadly.
back over your past and see, were there any things that really stood out in terms of what you did that really made a difference in terms of future planning and your, excelling your competitive advantage?
I think the thing now is, in looking back, is that it's the whole area of marketing has changed so significantly.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, social media marketing for a brand was kind of newish. Instagram was kind of newish. That wasn't the sort of traditional marketing techniques that we used as a business. So it was very much printed advertising, and over the last 10 or 15 years, it really has moved so dramatically the other way. People are viewing magazines online. They're not necessarily buying magazines, but that means that as a business you can be more proactive. So if you want to get product placement or be in editorial, those lead times are very short now, whereas they used to be very long.
Yes.
Magazines used to close off 2 months in advance.
Yeah.
So you had to be very prepared, very organised, and now you can take advantage of those really short lead time because it's so right now,
Yeah.
and it can change, and people can put articles on tomorrow if they have to. So the way we've been thinking, I guess, is thinking about, well, those things are still perhaps very important,
Yeah.
but actually we should be majoring on what young people and people of millennials and generations that are doing now with technology and how they're viewing different technologies across different browsers, different applications.
Okay, brilliant. And how about you, Edward? What's been your...
Yeah, I think I got lucky actually in the sense that I was actually in my late teens and early 20s kind of quite geekily into artificial intelligence and programming, and for whatever reason everyone said after the end of university, oh no, you want to go into business, and IT, that's just a back office function, that's not where you're going to make your money. But actually, what we've seen, and I've definitely moved my career back from management consultancy, which is really where I started, back into much more software development, because I think a lot of the things we're talking about today are programmatic, and the only way you can really understand how those are going to work and pilot them, or the quickest way of doing that, is to be able to write some stuff yourself. So I think I'm just lucky perhaps that was already it was really a side interest that I've now key part of my role.
Okay, so what you're saying is that, if you have an outside enthusiasm, nurture it.
Yeah.
And the message, I guess, to everyone here is to do that.
Yeah, I think for me it's very important to say that even if your job title does not include the word software development, pretty much everyone who is in the business of digital is only one step away from it. So I would say that if you can get into a mindset of I might not be able to write the underlying code, but I can still pilot stuff. And I think we'll see over the next few years a lot more what I would call programming light type interfaces, where you can use sort of if this then that logic to go and connect 2 different data sources, or say, okay, well, if my product's out of stop the Facebook ad. And I think being able to embrace that sort of programming light, I think is very important.
Okay, fantastic. Helen, do you want to give an overview of how video can work in the luxury retail market, and again give the audience some sort of sense of how you see video evolving as a useful digital tool for engagement?
Firstly, I think video years ago when I was at my previous roles, wasn't as big as it is now by a long way. And we would see videos on Facebook of catwalk shows and very important events that were being showcased by brands, rather than everyday events like, videoing a product being hung on a hanger or looking around a store, or even, somebody describing what brand proposition you've got. So video now, I think, has gone so deep, and actually we know that small, short videos react far better or get a better engagement than, say, long videos. So under 2 minutes is probably the most best ROI for video. You can video absolutely anything, and I think we see this across Instagram all the time. I've particularly some of the people that I follow have used Instagram video for segmenting what their brand values are. So say, for example, one of their brand values is sustainability. They can save all of their Instagram stories to one area specifically about sustainability, and new people visiting their account can see all of those videos very quickly within a short space of time and make a judgment very quickly on whether this is somebody that aligns with their beliefs. From Instagram to Facebook, everything on Facebook is video. People are more likely to share videos on Facebook. For me, I would much rather watch a video now than read an article. An article could take me 5 or 6 minutes to read if I'm reading quickly, depending on the length of it, but watching a video could take me 4 minutes. For me, that's a much better use of my time. Yeah. And I think that's what we have to look at when we're looking at individuals or people that are going to be buying into brands these days. Yeah. They have as little time as we do to take on this content and this knowledge. So for us, it's about feeding that information to them as quickly and as concisely as possible, without any of the other background noise that we would have got years ago.
Yes, indeed. And you bring up some important points there. So many people do video quite poorly. And, the concept of short segments.
Yeah. Making it relevant, as relevant as you can. Yeah.
And in terms of luxury products, obviously there's a lot of detail with luxury products. Can you allude to how videos?
Well, I think you have to break it down.
Yes.
So you wouldn't have one video portraying your whole brand, but you'd have lots of different smaller videos portraying different elements of your brand, whether that be about a material that you might use or a way that you might construct something.
Yes.
And so short snippets so people can dip in and out as they choose to, find the bits they find the most interesting and leave behind the rest.
Yes.
Because different people will latch on to different elements of a brand and not necessarily the bits that you think are the most important.
Yes. And do you have any insights when your audience, in terms of times of day, when video is really working at all?
Not just now, no. I haven't. That's not. Okay. Yeah, I mean, but we've got marketing. Our content plan includes video for the whole of next year. Okay. So we will start to begin to see those insights and start testing that kind of thing from as early as mid-January next year.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Edward.
Yeah, well, similar. I think this journey brands are coming on is from when they first started doing internet video, they were like, "Oh, this is like TV advertising."
Yes.
We had big brand videos, and it's all very vague and stuff. And as you say, actually, the biggest use of video now is really these sort of product-specific videos, explainer videos, much micro formats. And what we've seen the leading brands doing is therefore getting a lot more granular about how they measure the impact of that. Yeah. It's no longer just a branding exercise. They can actually measure micro conversion. And what I mean by that is, they on the site, they will see how many people even start playing the video, at what point in that video they drop off.
Okay.
And therefore they can then go back and tailor and go, okay, well, actually, you know what? For that purpose, 30 seconds is too long. 90% of people have gone by 20 seconds.
Right.
And they can start, clipping that up more. But I think, as you said, the ability for the customer to come in to find the video about the specific product or service or element of the brand they wanted to, and just see that is very, very important.
And can you allude to the measurement process you've just mentioned? So I'm familiar with Google Analytics of a video.
So that's exactly what we do. Is we would help customers. So generally, video. So Google Analytics by default, you're tracking like the view of the page, right? Yeah. But the problem about video is it's typically embedded within the page, and so you have to send some other further events to Google Analytics to say the customer has now started viewing the video. Yeah. Customer stopped viewing the video, and do the calculations from there.
Okay.
So it's not generally the progress throughout the video is not tracked by default. It has to be set up.
Okay, Okay, cool. And have you seen any good brands that are really doing video really well? I mean, that question to both of you.
I see it more socially, I think, than brands right now. I think brands still need to do a lot of catching up.
Yeah.
I think there are individual influencers across the internet who are using video really, really well,
Yes.
and leveraging that for users, for brand profiling. I think that's where I see it the most, and I see it used really well and really effectively.
Okay, Edward, have you seen any brands that you think, wow, they're
Yeah, I was
really
trying
doing it
to
well?
think of one off the top of my head. It's always difficult when you put it on the spot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I
the
think
ones...
of Red Bull, who use videos
Yeah.
a lot in their skiing videos. And
Yeah. Yeah, so Red Bull are really good at sponsoring the sort of, videos associated with the brand, adventure,
Yes.
so on, and they have, do lots of stuff with, crazy people jumping off planes, and that's great. But I was actually going to admire some, and it's kind of what we're going to come on to talk, I think, about sort of engaging millennials with stories, but brands that really manage, and I'm thinking particularly some kind of outdoor clothing type brands we work with who are really good at showing their products in action.
Yep.
I mean, if you have a brand, rather than just showing a static view of the thing in the shop, showing real people using that stuff is hugely powerful, and I think the best brands do a combination of, let's say, professionally made video that they put on their site, but also source stuff or re-share stuff that users have also generated of their product being used in real life.
Yes, indeed. And
Sorry, there's a company that just came to mind called Finisterre.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know Finisterre. Finisterre is set in Cornwall, and they've got quite strong brand values, and they do a lot of conservation. It's around the whole surfing. So they've got like a whole brand of clothing, but they also have on their conservation. They work with different collaborators, but in their emails, their branding is very strong. So their brand, they send out a Sunday email called the Sunday Forecast, and it's got, it's all about what's happening with the surf and all of that stuff, but inside that they always have video, very coolly shot, engaging video. And one of the things about video used in landing pages or email is that your conversion is infinitely higher. So they're definitely one brand who are using it to their advantage and doing it really well.
yes, and on that, but that's a really good point, because I think from my own experience, video is very powerful for things like landing page optimization. And again, is that something you've tested?
Just the click-through is just higher because they get the message really quickly. They don't have to read a whole email of text content or lots of imagery. It's very, and it can be translated as well. Video can be translated.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I was going to say, I'm not sure whether that sort of, it might just be a novelty value at the moment.
Yeah.
Fewer landing pages have video, therefore they get more engagement if they do.
Yeah.
But I think your point's really good, is that often, we live in a world where you've got a local brand selling direct to consumer around the world, right?
Yeah.
And so actually for most smaller brands it's not viable to have their content translated into many languages.
Yeah.
But immediately motion pictures, again, it's much easier for that designing for non-native English speakers is really important, and videos, it's much easier to cross that language barrier.
Yes.
Sorry, on translation, I didn't mean necessarily languages. I meant as in it can be translated across many platforms.
True.
So
Okay.
you could have it transcribed into an article.
Yep,
you
true.
could put it onto YouTube.
Yep.
You could
Reuse,
upload
repurpose.
it. Exactly. So the repurposing option of a 2-minute video isn't just about putting it on your email or on your website. It's got so many different options of use.
Yeah.
So your reach for that one video could be infinitely more than just that email or that landing page on your website.
Yes, and I guess a recommendation is, on that point, is to be resourceful with your video content, because we can reformat the content for different platforms. And what do you think about this kind of growing trend of live video with Facebook Live and Instagram? And do you think there's an opportunity there, kind of looking into the future for brands to be more clever with what they can do with that?
If you're brave enough.
If you're brave enough.
Yeah, you have good to willing to sort of. I mean, as you say, that stuff's much more relevant if it is user-generated content. And we're talking about Instagram stories. I mean, it's great if people are going to produce a video which features your brand, but they could equally be, that stuff, as we know, is hard to control.
Yes.
It could be negative as much as positive.
Yes.
I mean, I was watching, actually, funny enough, my girlfriend loves the boxer Anthony Joshua, and he did a Facebook Live training session yesterday she was showing
really?
me. And a massive, massive audience. I mean, like tens of millions tuning in to watch him sweat in a gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny because actually the first like 5 minutes he had no idea they were live. So he was like clowning around. It's like, when are we going to go live? And he's like, and he can't see that he's already got
live.
So it's very difficult to control those experiences.
Yes.
The people using live video well, though, are people like motivators, coaches, online recruitment consultants, maybe giving tutorials online about how and to improve your profile, how to improve your CV, things like that. I've seen lots of stuff like that out there.
Yeah.
But in terms of brands, I think it might be quite advantageous for brand founders, you know, if they're from that, getting across brand values from a founder could be much more important or great conversion rather than somebody just in your marketing department, not just somebody just in your marketing department, but you know, do you know what I mean? So it depends on the hierarchy and depends who's giving that live video, I imagine. Yeah,
and it's part of, you know, I guess it's a brand decision, isn't it? Whether you want to be authentic as a brand and share all of the stuff that's happening. I mean, certainly one of the things we're trying to do personally in Little Data is to, you know, we've actually new onto Instagram recently, and I thought for a business Instagram was you know, because we're not a consumer brand. I didn't think it was a relevant platform, but I realised that actually, you know, that ability to engage, particularly from a recruitment perspective, employee branding perspective, to show people what the real day-to-day stuff that we're doing, life in the office, places we're travelling, that's all really important to give people an idea of the authenticity of the brand.
Okay, that's really interesting. A good recommendation is, the internal perception of your brand using this platform. Okay, so we definitely think video is one to watch, and it's all the data is proving that video will continue and to be a really good strategy for maintaining a competitive edge with your competitors. So we're going to move on to chatbots and I guess AI and conversational interfaces. And you know, there's this massive prediction in a wider kind of strategic context of, you know, the displacement of people, but I guess within digital marketing, from my own experience with bots and AI, we have a great opportunity perhaps to be much more efficient with our tasks. We also have the opportunity to explore new avenues for things like conversational interfaces like Facebook chat, Alexa, of course, and so there's a lot of different conversations with them. But I guess simplifying this to both of you, I'll start again with Helen. Where I mean, it may not be something that you've looked at for your own business yet, but I just wonder, where do you see, in the context of digital marketing, where can you see an opportunity for any of this audience who is exploring kind of AI as a starting place? Do you see it as an efficiency thing? Do you see it as, you know, maybe testing Alexa, or for just good customer service on Facebook?
I think I see that's definitely where I see it as an added advantage is, I mean, we've probably all come across chatbots at some point in the last year or 2 years or 3 years. I definitely have, and I use them quite a lot online. And I have to say, I'm never quite sure if I'm speaking to a bot in a chat or a real person in a chat. And I think that's I was reading online a few weeks ago that somebody said, I definitely think I was speaking to a bot. And it's like, well, actually, I haven't come across that personally. Maybe some people have. But the natural language processing is getting so much better. So if you look at Alexa or Siri or any of those other bots, the development of that is growing at such a pace. It isn't like it was even a year ago when you could talk to these and get some kind of misunderstanding. It's really clever. And actually, as a business, you can have that kind of technology in your business really simply now, without any complicated programming or you know, it's much more readily available. And I think from previous experience of working in a customer facing product retail environment, staffing and customer services was always a massive key thing. It was about answering a call within 30 seconds and having the availability for somebody to get the answer that they wanted, because that could be the difference between getting a conversion and not.
Yeah.
However, it is staff intensive and the training is intensive. So if you've got a bunch of 10 commonly asked questions that a bot could answer on an online environment to save your customer services having to collect those calls, I can see why that's an advantage. But equally, some people do want to speak to a human being. So I think we have to remember that although there's this whole worry about displacement of people, I think we have to be very careful about just, not having those functions available at all.
Yes.
Because I think...
But I think it's also the differentiation. I believe that most people want to know, they're quite happy interfacing with a robot if they know it's a robot. I think this whole that it's going to blur, I don't think most people are comfortable with that. So I think it can create a better customer experience. I mean, let's be honest, a bot experience is better than a kind of go and look at our FAQs experience. But it's not always, it's still, and probably won't be for the next few years, as good as a human experience. So I think you need to, as a brand, be clear when you're giving someone the AI experience and when you're giving them the human intelligence experience.
Yes, but I agree with Helen, because a good case study is KLM, who've used bots for customer service, and they said that to do it successfully, you can't completely replace a conversation with a bot, but you can, at a certain stage in the conversation, you can automate process if you're sending a confirmation of a booking, for example.
Totally.
But then you bring into, then people want to speak to a real life person. So it's like you're taking away a lot of the the admin time of people in training, but you're still got that human interface, I guess, which is your brand values, and that's really important.
I don't know whether I agree with telling people that it's a bot, though. For example, if I went online and someone said, "Oh, this is a robot chat," would I be a bit more like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to speak to a robot"? But if I didn't know it was a robot and I went through that process and I got a successful answer, I would go away a happy customer without even thinking about it.
Well,
so
either
it
way,
depends
I think
on the person.
we're probably only
maybe.
a few years off that being indistinguishable. So, but you're right. It is moving incredibly quickly, and to your point, I think it's sometimes you forget that it really was only. I mean, a year ago this stuff wasn't reliable, and 2 years ago it was inconceivable, and so to extrapolate even a year or two is quite hard.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure we have to assume there will be a point quite soon where having an easy, fluid conversation with Alexa is really very natural, normal. It's going to disrupt. I mean, I think the thing that hasn't followed through is how that's going to disrupt on advertising. Because if you think about Google's whole business model of displaying adverts alongside the search, I can't see how it does that with an audio exchange.
Yes.
Hi Google, where did I find my latest shoes? Well, hello. Paid ad. Your latest shoes. How does it do that? So I think companies like Amazon actually it's a bit easier, because Amazon basically just suck all that stream of context about what you're talking about and feed you products you might be interested in. That's great. But I think if you're trying to advertise your product or service via the advertising platform, and by the way, one of the things that's becoming very clear is that no one else can compete with the top 4 companies who are developing these AI chats, i.e. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Five.
Although Sonos has done very well.
Yeah, but I still think that they're nowhere near competing in terms of the volume of R&D these companies are putting in, which means that as a brand, you will have to go through one of those 5 to get to your customer. And it's not clear to me how you're going to be able to do that in a world of sort of seamless audio chat.
Yes, I agree. One thing I've observed myself, and Helen can probably understand this, I've got a 5-year-old son, and he started to talk to Alexa device, and that's as an observer, that's really interesting, because it makes me think his world of accessing music. Obviously, I grew up with CDs, but he now goes to Alexa he thinks that that's the default way in which he gets access to music. So I wonder, and this is, how his generation, who many of whom will be like him, how he will view voice in the future. Because if he grows up with asking a device a question and it responds, does that mean automatically he will expect a lot of his questions and answers, whilst we grow up with a search engine his generation may think differently. And what I've seen is quite a change in the habit of potentially customers, thinking about it. And I just wondered, is that something you've seen? Or?
Definitely. I think children are extremely clever where tech is concerned. Even my 2-year-old can navigate my phone to YouTube or to Prime and find a movie he wants to watch, and he's just 2. And that's not because I give it to him readily. It's just because that's what they know, as you say. We've got a smart TV, and that's probably the only smart gadget in our home, actually. We don't have an Alexa, and I'm kind of steering away from having... I'm a bit sort of I'm on the fence about whether Alexa's spying on you all the time, and let's face it, they're gleaning a lot of data, which they're then selling onto third parties, and that's a very powerful thing for any company, especially if there's only 4 or 5 of them in the world gathering that much data about everybody. So I'm going to keep my house as smart-free as I can for as long as I can, but for the children, it's a world they're growing up in, and actually in 10 years you probably won't be able to go into an electronics store without buying a smart product. I mean, they'll all be smart. In fact, I was reading that Amazon now have 20,000 products, home smart products that are compatible with Alexa. I mean, that's enormous, 20,000 smart home products.
That you can control with
voice.
It's
crazy, but to answer your question, my son speaks to the TV, so you can press a button and say, YouTube Postman Pat, and Postman Pat will be presented, and he can navigate to a Postman Pat. So for music, TV programs they like, it's, Google, Mummy, can we ask Google, what's the weather going to be like today, Mummy? I don't know, darling. Shall we ask Google? It's they just think that's a natural thing, that there's a body above us that we can just ask any question to.
Yeah.
So one of the fascinating things for me in this whole journey is the re-emergence of brands. So I think a few years ago, there was probably 10 years ago, there was a feeling that the internet disrupted that, actually. That when you had Amazon or whatever selling whatever you want, that actually it was more about the distribution and less about the, let's say, brand salience for the consumer. But actually with this sort of stuff, actually it becomes all about the brand as well. If you can remember what that thing is you wanted, then you can ask Amazon to deliver it for you. But if you can't remember it, or you can't remember what it, that particular brand name, then how are you going to find out about it?
Yeah, I totally agree. And this actually brings me really nicely onto the next point, is the importance of stories for engaging younger people. Obviously, younger people have a shorter attention span. Everyone's really, really busy. So, and on this point, the importance for brands to differentiate themselves and use these new applications to create stories, to engage them. And I just wondered, Helen, I'm going to start with you because I know that you're very, very strong on this, is in the luxury world, can you explain how the importance of stories for engaging a younger audience? And
so the research we've been doing is just no longer good enough just to be a 30 or 40-year-old brand selling a luxury product. The audience that's going to be buying into those brands that's emerging, so we're talking about millennials, the Generation Z of the world, they don't have a history with the historic brands, but what they do have a knowledge of is what they want the future of our planet to look like. So for millennials and Generation Z, it's much more about looking at a brand and saying, does this brand align with my brand, with my values of sustainability, my values of recycling, of reusing, of plastics, the plastic pollution problem. Are they waste free? Are they reducing their carbon footprint? So these are topics that are super important for these new individuals, and actually Generation Z is going to be 40% of the consumer market by 2020. That's just 2 years away. So these are 22-year-olds and younger. Now, for brands that have been established for a very long time and have been operating just on a luxury, this is very well made, that's no longer good enough. You need to have more essence to your brand, and if you've got more essence to your brand, it's those elements you should absolutely be highlighting to your audience to capture these younger people coming through. That's what would be my only And stories can be used for that, because you can use small videos and small snippets of video to really segment your brand values, so that when they come on, they see your website, your profiles on social media, those brand values are really standing out to those people.
Yes. Edward.
Yeah, I totally agree about, and that's what we're talking about, but the importance of brands. So when I started Little Data a few years ago, the biggest objection investors actually had was, what's the point in helping all these individual small retailers improve their sales, because aren't they going to all go out of business and Amazon's just going to take over the world? I don't see that. I see an absolute boom in direct-to-consumer business. And what I mean by that is you've got lots of brands that stand in passionate niches that stand for a particular, it's not just about the products they sell, it's about the values that they stand for.
Yeah.
And for this new audience coming through, that is really important.
Yes.
They don't want to just buy generic thing from China that, that is cheap and trust, they want to trust. They want to see it in action.
Yes.
They want to see people endorsing it. I mean, that's massive right now. Is endorsement by people on with lots of social following.
Yeah.
And so the story, as I see, is not just a story in the sense of Instagram stories, but it's the brand telling the story about how their products are used, and then giving the customer a channel that they can come direct, either via, they can click on their the product direct on Instagram and go and buy it from them, or they can Google a brand name, or they can find them on their Facebook store. Making it, once you've created the story, it's now cheaper than ever for brands to have that, to actually own the the purchase and the distribution.
Yes.
And so we're seeing an absolute boom in people managing that process and then wanting insight into how that's going.
And can you share with the audience, is there any simple way to kind of express your values in stories that kind of, again, give you an edge from a brand that's just selling products because they are cheap? Or is it?
For us, it's about portraying the materials that we use and the history behind those materials and why we've chosen those, but also about how it's crafted and saying, okay, we're crafted the same as perhaps somebody down the road, but what we're using and our ethos is that we want our planet to be here for a long, long time. We want our children and our children's children to have something. We're trying to protect it for them. Therefore, the fast fashion approach has got to fall by the wayside. And we need to be using more sustainable materials. And I think the younger audience are looking for those brands and saying, I'm not going to buy that T-shirt that's $5 because that has to have been made by somebody. Therefore, what were they being paid to make it? But actually, I'm going to spend $25 on this material, which is a technical fabric, which is made from a renewable source, and which is well made. Therefore, I buy less, and I'm buying more quality.
Yeah, I can only really speak from our own brand as a software company. As kind of what we were talking about earlier. I think it's about the portraying as real people who have a passion, have an interest. What do we do? Because there's again we Little Data operates in quite a generic environment. I mean, there are lots of marketing software businesses with different flavors. 7,000 different marketing tools at the last count. And so having this differentiation, being able to say, look, actually, we're these people, we're in these locations, we work with these kind of other companies, people can really locate us, that's really important.
Yes. And I guess what I'm thinking in my mind is that although we are evolving into a very tech-savvy society, those brands that are more human are actually getting more cut through. Is that a fair
I'd say that was
assessment?
fair to say,
Yeah, definitely.
Again, have you seen any brands that are really doing this kind of well in your day-to-day work?
I don't necessarily. I suppose I would say is that because of the changes in the demographic that we're seeing, bigger brands are starting to emerge, change. So, for example, if you look at fast fashion, H&M is one of the big players there. They've recently, within the last 2 years, they've invested in a company who are looking at alternative ways to produce renewable leather. So they've just bought a company that make wine leather, and they're developing a leather from wine, remnants of the wine industry. So they're already looking to try and future-proof their customer base and say, okay, well, we're not sustainable now, but we're edging towards more sustainable practices, because they know that younger audience, that's what they're going to be demanding.
Yes. We're coming to the end of this session. Unfortunately, I'd love to continue chatting because I'm really enjoying it. But the last point I was talking about was this idea about reinvention of our careers, and I just wondered, do you have anything to share with anyone here about reinvention and making sure that you're ahead of the game with your digital marketing? Just to finish as a final kind of question.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
I mean, we try
Continue learning.
Yeah, we try and have a policy now in the company where everyone spends a day a month of learning time.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be spent off at conferences and stuff, but the digital marketing world is moving so quickly.
Yes.
I don't think you can do a course a year ago and pretend you're still an expert
Yes.
a year on.
I agree
Okay.
with that.
Brilliant.
And embracing new technology, I would say.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming today to share your opinions. Both Helen and Edward will be here for the rest of the morning to answer any questions. And I hope you all have a fantastic day today, and I hope that's given you some food for thought. And thank you very much indeed. Cheerio.
So,